Are you ready to break this cycle? My name is Amy Ballantyne, the host of Power to the People Pleasers podcast, and I'm so excited to have my guest here, Gina. Gina is an executive life coach. She is an intuitive eating specialist, negativity detox specialist. My goodness, so many great things, Gina. So happy to have you today.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much for having me.
So I would love to dive right in. We're here to empower all those people who resonate with, putting themselves last, putting themselves on the back burner, getting burnt out. Can you share your own experience of if you've had any experience with maybe being a people pleaser at some point?
Yes, 100%. I believe that I have been a people pleaser since childhood. Don't know whatever that stems from. And certainly like through my 20s, didn't think much about it. Just a constant yes girl. Anytime somebody would ask me for anything, whether or not I could really do it, I just had to say yes. I had to say yes to a point where you start to get to know yourself a little bit better as you get older and start to set boundaries. And that is when everything started to change for me, is setting boundaries and finding out that nothing bad comes from saying no. Nothing, that my world didn't end because I wasn't struck by lightning. It's nothing like, looking around like, is anything bad going to say if I say no to someone? And once you start to learn that, you start to want to say no more when it's appropriate, when you really can't do something, if it's going to emotionally drain you, or take up time that you had set aside for something else for yourself. When it starts to become a negative for you, you have to take that stance and say, this is not something that's good for me right now. And of course, there's really good ways to do that.
Do you want to share some? You're right
Yes,
on the.
I would love to. Okay, great. I'm glad you asked. I will first say that it did not come easy and it did not happen overnight. So you're not going to go from, if you're a big people pleaser, you're not going to go from that to setting healthy boundaries for yourself overnight. So that is the first thing, to just release all time scales of what you might think in your mind for that. It takes practice. So I always say preparation is key. Start with the ones that you feel are easier for you to do. So maybe someone closest to you, right? A partner that is not going to be a bad thing. And practice with them first. Practice on the small things to say no. And practice saying them in your mind ahead of time. You don't need to give an excuse. You don't even need to explain why you can't do
Yes, that's a
something.
big one.
That is a really big thing. Like, let me come up with, like, I would go crazy in my mind. Well, what could I say that wouldn't upset them? If you are prepared ahead of time, with your approach and coming at a conversation with love and
Yeah.
grace for yourself, you're going to receive that back from the other person all the time. So practice small, right? Practice small. And then when you get that positive feedback, you're like, you know what? I can do this. Remember that positive feedback and try it again next time. Keep trying. Don't ever give up. There are going to be times where you're going to feel guilty. You may feel bad that you had to say no, but if you come at it from a place of love, and you come at it as a place of love for yourself and
Yeah.
love for your own boundaries, that will come across as a positive thing, not a negative thing, because the word no is immediately thought of as a negative reaction, right? But it doesn't need to be.
Yes,
There
it
are
doesn't
plenty
need
of
to
times
be.
no can be in a loving, yeah, it can be in a very loving way.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And not creating the story around that no, right? So many people, if they've heard someone say no to them, create that story of, well, they don't like me, they're not my friend anymore, or whatever the story might be. That's where I like to encourage people and coach people to stop that action, that behavior right there of there doesn't have to be a story attached. And you actually brought something up for me is this, uh, you know, if you said yes to something and you feel that feeling in your gut of regret and
Mhm.
like, oh, what did I just say yes to? I mean, this is a great place to become aware of what are the feelings that you're feeling around saying yes and no to different things, and starting to make a list of those things. So when you're
Mhm.
starting to practice small, when you're starting to practice with those stepping stones towards more self-care and self-love, boundaries, that you have a list. Because sometimes, I know at first I was like, oh, I don't think I could say to no to anything. But then I was like, come on, Amy. I've said yes to
Ye
many things. So, let's review
Uh-huh.
the list.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a big fan of lists and writing things down. Back to something you said about story.
Mm,
We put a story in our head of how the other person's going to react when we
yeah.
have to say no to something. We make that up. We, as if it's fact. It's not
Mhm.
fact just because you think something.
Yeah.
And I think Dr. Amen said it best. Like, I don't believe every thought I have. If we believed every thought we had, we'd be in really big trouble, right? So first recognize that story that we're putting in our head that hasn't even happened yet. What somebody else's reaction may be when we say no.
Mm,
And again, if you come at it from a place of love,
yeah.
there's not a negative reaction.
Yeah.
And being prepared.
I love that.
Is this good for me? Does this
Yeah.
serve me? The biggest thing that I tell my clients and the biggest single action that changed my life was journaling.
Mm,
For me, it's first thing in the morning, and it doesn't matter if it's first thing in the morning, middle of the afternoon, at night. But a once a day, just kind of an overall check-in. Did I do something today that I didn't want to do and didn't really
mhm.
serve me emotionally?
Wow.
Or, if you did, that's great, but do a check-in, like a daily check-in, and then you start to see your own patterns, and then
Mm,
you can also, go back and say, if there's a particular person that you're always yesing to and you're feeling like a little bit drained, why are you saying yes to them all the time?
I
What
love
what
that.
is that? What story are you telling yourself that
Mhm.
they may react to, right? And again, usually
Mhm.
you're wrong. Usually I'm wrong in what I'm thinking.
No.
I make up some big I could be really good at that. But that self-awareness, right? Like I know that I'm
Mhm.
like that. So it's like, okay, um, learning yourself and your behaviors, it's you can make shifts. And even the smallest shift is really can move in a positive direction for you, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. So, as we're here today talking about breaking the cycle of self sacrifice, perhaps you can share one or two ways where you notice in your clients people are demonstrating that self sacrifice, and what you tell them. What are your strategies to break that?
Hmm. Um, I guess reacting, I guess what that would be,
Mm,
being reactionary, right? Reacting to everyone or everything that's coming into their life, from phone
mhm.
calls to emails to demands from other people, and
Yeah.
reacting right away.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
My hand is up. I was the biggest person doing that, reacting to every little thing. I have to answer that email the second it comes in. I have to answer this call. I have
Mm.
to do this because somebody needs me to do this right now. No one told me that I had to do those things right now. I thought that I had to do those.
Yeah.
So I would say block off time where you do not check those emails. You do not react to every little thing that comes in. You make it on your time. And again, this takes practice.
Yeah.
This takes practice. I was I would absolutely grab my phone first thing upon waking up, check to see what emails I miss, because there'd be some just major email in the middle of the night that like now it's so
Not the
ridiculous. But
truth.
what did I miss on social media before I can even like ease into like my day, get my
Yeah.
mind right?
Yeah.
None of those things, none of those phone calls or anything that I missed, nothing changed when I gave it time.
Mm.
Nothing changed when I gave it that hour for me to take to myself and do my journaling. Nothing changed.
Isn't that interesting?
Nothing. Zero. Like, if anything, me taking a step or a pause, as I like to call it, I've heard it referred to as like a pause before
Mm.
reacting to everyone and everything was not only calming for me and is better for me emotionally, but then my reaction to the person receiving it on the other end, it's a better outcome.
Yes.
You know, right? Let's say you get a stressful
Yes.
email at work. Oh, and you just want to react like I did this or I take take a
Take
pause.
some time.
Take some time. It's like that, write the nasty email, but don't send. It's kind of like
Yes.
that, except you don't even need to do that. Just take time to digest it and
Yes.
really think about it. Nothing is that important that it needs to come at the sacrifice of your emotional well-being. Nothing.
Yeah. I love that. And I want to layer on
Mhm.
that, some people, I think if there's one strategy that individuals listening might want to try to layer on this idea that you're sharing with us is to turn off the notifications on their phone, to disconnect the notifications from their smartwatch. Wearing the stress, wearing
Mhm.
that energy, hearing the vibration, hearing the ding, hearing all of these things. I mean, I love it. That wasn't that perfect timing?
That was literally
That was
I
perfect
mean
timing.
what happened to my airplane mode? Okay, guess it didn't hit all the way.
I love
Yeah,
it.
this is
Oh,
your
that's
time, right?
perfect. That's
Like,
perfect, right?
we couldn't even script that if we literally tried. If we tried.
That was awesome. But like
So
I have people who notice their difference of not sacrificing their well-being to that vibration, to the ding, and that's made a big difference for me, a really big difference. So if that strategy helps people, I invite them to try that. Now, I'd love to hear from you. I know you're an intuitive eating expert, you're a negativity detox specialist. So
mhm.
how do these two things play into letting go of this? I'm sacrificing my own needs all the time. I'm sacrificing my own um, physical, mental, spiritual requirements. How do these play in?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I would be eating like on the go. And when I say on the go, I mean standing up at my counter while checking the emails on the phone,
Yeah.
while the TV's on, shoving food in my mouth to run out to the next thing, right? Um, that does more to your insides than you even know what's going on, right? Your body
Mhm.
is not, that is just, fight or flight. You're just taking in what you need to survive, as
Yeah.
opposed to letting your body digest it, really relax and take it in, stepping away from the phone. It doesn't matter if
Mhm.
it's 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Again, starting this, it's boundaries. It's, your body is either in fight or flight or it's in rest and repair. It
Mhm.
can't be in both at the same time. And you want to be in that, there is a big difference in how your food will even absorb into your body when you're sitting and taking the time to enjoy each bite. I'm not saying you take an hour per meal. I'm just saying when you have all these other things going on, you're not focused on, and your body has no time to take that in.
Yeah.
No time. A very simple tip that everybody could implement right now. If you're like,
Love
I'm
it.
not ready to journal, I'm not ready to put my phone on airplane mode while I'm eating or any of that. One thing that you could do right now before you sit down to eat, before you're about to start your workday, each time you get into your car, when you enter your car and as you're about to exit your car, take 30 seconds,
Hmm.
just 30 seconds. Breathe a few deep breaths. Think about what the next thing you're going to go into. If you got screaming kids in the car, you're taking them to school, drop them off. As soon as they get out, just take 30
Mm.
seconds before putting the car back into drive to reset.
Mm.
The smallest changes like that absolutely put your mind in a different space.
Love it.
And that's the smallest thing you can do, and you're gonna see a big do that for 3 to 5 days. Every single time, just take that pause, 30-second pause. My pauses
Mm.
are now up to, like, 2 minutes, but
I love
2 minutes before we got onto this call, I wanna be in the headspace to talk to you, the right
Yes.
headspace, leave all the other stuff, forgot the airplane mode, but that's okay. We're gonna
Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. So
It's
can you
perfect.
imagine? I just had this beautiful visual of this idea of taking this pause of all of these people, let's say at the mall, where they've
Yeah.
put their kids in the car and now they're standing outside of the vehicle, and you see all these people just standing and just breathing. Wouldn't that be awesome?
It would be so
Wouldn't that be
look, my clients have done it. They're like, "I had to breathe for 30 seconds. The kids are screaming in the back seat." It's 30 seconds. No one else really even notices it. I'm taking
Yeah.
a 30-second pause. I'm
Yes.
taking a 30-second pause.
I love
And
that.
I do that before a phone call, with a client. Again, mine's up to 2 minutes. It can be as long as you want it to be. But it's a great way to start. So if you're just starting out and think about, what do I want to go into this with? Or at the end of every phone call or the end of a heated email, like at work, something stressful, if you go right into the next thing that you're doing, there is no time for your body and your mind to relax. So
Yeah.
before going from one situation to the other, that's the most important time to pause and to
Yeah.
just, okay, decompress from one before we move into the other.
Mhm. Love that.
Game
Love that.
changer. Game changer.
Yes. What else? What else would you say? People are sacrificing themselves all the time. So we've talked a bit about being more mindful with the eating. We've talked about taking in the 30-second pause, 2-minute pause, journaling. What else would you say from your background is an important thing to do for you call it physical fitness, mental fitness, and spiritual fitness. What else would be
Mhm.
important?
Well, all three are connected. They're very much
Mhm.
married to each other, right?
Mhm.
So I would say start with whatever your weakest link is, wherever you feel like you're going to need
Mhm.
the most help. That's start there. You don't
Yeah.
need to, if all three need some sort of help, need some sort of change, you're going to be overwhelmed if you want to change everything at once. So
Mhm.
look at those three things. Eating is a big one, right? Diet. A lot of people come
Yeah.
to me overweight. They want to lose some weight. So maybe like
Right.
it's a physical thing. Start with one and start small.
Yeah.
You don't need to all of a sudden start journaling every day, but start small. Preparation is very key. So if you say,
Mhm.
well, I want to lose 10 pounds, great. What are we going to do how are you going to lose this 10 pounds? Where are you
Mhm.
going to turn to? What there has to be some sort of preparation. Reach out to people like me or anybody on the social media that can help you do that to prepare ahead of time, right?
Mhm.
Preparation, huge. And the other thing, we say these things, we come up with like something we want to change or do, and then it tends to go away within a week. Why? We didn't
Mhm.
make the time for it. And here's what I mean by the time: actually blocking it off in your calendar.
Yeah.
I block off in my calendar when I have to go to a doctor's appointment. Nothing else is going to happen at that time. That doctor has my time now on my calendar. That is their time. It's blocked off, and I can't do anything else. Why don't we do that for ourselves? I
Mhm.
do that now. I've been doing that for years, and that's a game changer too. But Gina, 4 to 5
Yeah.
at this time. That's my time. And whatever it is you want to do with that time, that's your time. But the doctor, you don't show up for that appointment, they'll sometimes charge you for not coming there. You've wasted their time because their time is
Yeah.
important. Your time is just as important. I'm using
I
a
love
doctor's appointment example, right? But we have thousands of examples of that. The
that.
teacher conference, the teacher's sitting there waiting for you at a specific time. Well, show up for yourself. You should show up for yourself the same way you show up for everybody else.
I love
That
that. Love.
my name is all over my calendar, and you're like, you meeting with who's this Gina you're meeting with all the time? Is that it's like, right? If somebody looked at my calendar, they'd be like, what,
Yeah.
who are these regular meetings? It doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to, whatever your schedule is. But when you mark it off, nobody else gets to come in on that time. No one.
Mm.
That's make a hard pass, just like you would at, like I said, at the
I
doctor with
love
someone like
that, Gina. And I think, you said this idea of starting small with your desire to change or the actions you want to
Mhm,
take, and writing this in the calendar. I am a big fan of that concept, because I believe if
mhm,
it's not scheduled in, it's very unlikely to get done. We make these giant plans, right? Especially beginning of January,
mhm,
make these giant plans to make all these changes. And we do this all year round, let's be real. But if there is not time scheduled in, huge. And there's this passage, and I'm not going to get the quote perfect, from Brendan Burchard that I absolutely love. And it really was a catalyst for me and making some big, big changes in my life a number of years ago. And it was this idea of who is running your daily agenda, who is running that,
mhm,
and making sure, like you're saying, to put those moments in for yourself. Show yourself that respect, show yourself that time. We're not required to sacrifice ourselves for the sake of every person and for our journey. You're not required to do that. But then we
mhm.
get hooked in. What about for those people, Gina, who get hooked into, you know Netflix? They're on this, like, I have to finish this series. What is that called? I'm
Binging,
missing binging.
binging.
They're binging food. I mean, they're binging anything. They're in this, like, cycle of, I've got to finish it. What is your advice to those people when it
If they
comes
want
to
to,
their wellness? Yeah.
if they want to stop doing those things,
Mhm.
right? Well, first of all, binging on Netflix isn't always right. If it's something that you enjoy and you're actually getting your alone time, that's your
Mm.
time. It can be a positive thing, right? When it tips
Mhm.
over into something that's making you now not feel good, when it starts to have a negative impact on you, that's when you need to recognize and take a step back. But
Mhm.
for everybody who's listening, when when you first just even start to recognize something isn't good for me, this is starting to feel negative, it's not as positive as it used to be, right? Um, just that recognition is your step one. Congratulations. You celebrate that win. You recognize this isn't good for me anymore. Maybe this isn't serving me in the way that it used to serve me. Congratulations, you've made it to step one. Step two is having the willingness to just want to make that change before even making a change, having the willingness to make a change in your life. Give yourself a pat on the back. We are constantly putting ourselves down instead of celebrating our wins. Celebrate that as a win,
Yes.
recognizing it as a win. That's a win, and go
I
from
love
there.
that. Gina, I
Don't
love
give
that.
up.
I have really enjoyed our time together today. And I 100% agree with you on this. If we're going to break this cycle, getting clear on where we're having the challenges, becoming more aware is my step one as well. I love that. I think
Mhm.
you and I could have a talk for hours,
Hours.
hours, but this is our podcast time, and I'm so grateful for you being here today. What is the one final thought you'd leave our listeners with?
Mm. You are amazing. Tell yourself that
Mm.
every day. Think about the way you're talking to yourself and keep it positive. As soon as you have a negative thought about yourself, flip it to a positive. You're doing great. Keep moving.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you. And for those people who want to connect with you further, I know you're giving away a free gift, 12 habits to boost mind, body, and soul at your website. So I'll be linking that in the show notes as well. And
Excellent.
it was a real pleasure. Thank you so much for being here today. And for all those people who have been listening in, thank you for listening to this episode of Power to the People Pleasers, and stay tuned for the next episode. Have a great day.